Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson. We want everybody around here to know at Invisible Condition, with an invisible condition, that we want you to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that you do have a voice, you do have a community, and you are never alone. And to that end, I am super excited to introduce you to my guest today. We have a great, where did it go? There it is. I had the wrong piece of paper in front of me. Eileen McDonald. Our guest is Eileen McDonald today, and she's awesome. She understands too well how the culture's fast-paced lifestyle is wreaking havoc on the mental and physical well-being of professional women today. And is that not true? That having suffered negative health effects from the just relentless pursuit of success, she began searching for a better way to live and work, which a lot of people are doing nowadays, right? After coaching and training hundreds of individuals, from young professionals to senior leaders, she sees the significant toll that burnout, self-doubt, fear, and uncertainty, lack of confidence, and anxiety takes on a person's health and well-being. That is so real today. With more than 3 decades of experience across many industries as a registered nurse, a nurse coach, a biofeedback trainer, I love that. She created the BodyCue-IQ Holistic Approach to Conscious Wellbeing. This is going to be awesome. I can't wait. I don't know. We're going to have to talk to her about that because I don't know exactly all of what that is, but we're going to talk about it today. So let's welcome Eileen. Hello. Thank you so much for being here, Eileen. I'm so glad that we got to put this together. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited. I've been following you now, Jeff, for a while, and I'm just inspired of all the lives that you've touched and really getting the message out there about, the invisible conditions, that is so important. Sometimes when we physically can't see something, we don't even realize what's behind it. And so I used to say with biofeedback, we make the invisible visible. So for people just understanding their own inside of their body and how their bodies work. So so you touching upon that and really making that really aware to so many people, I think it helps, it just helps an infinite amount of people. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, this has been, if you'd have told me a couple of years ago where we'd be today and what we've been doing, I probably would have laughed, but oh my gosh, what a time it's been. So, and you're part of that amazing list of guests now, and I'm so excited that we got to do this. So we've had some fun and some crazy, and overall it's been absolutely amazing meeting so many people doing so many cool things. So can you just let's just start from the beginning. Like, can you just share with us your personal journey and how you, like, when you first realized that negative impact that all that fast-paced craziness was having on you?
Yeah, so we're approaching almost 30 years when I really started. I was a mom of three small kids. And, I was working full time, managing everybody's world. And I kept going to the doctor saying, I don't feel well, but we just keep plugging along. And he would say, oh, Eileen, you're a type A personality. You just have to learn to just kind of relax a little. And I would say, okay, sure. And I'd walk away feeling just empty. And by the time I was diagnosed with my autoimmune disease, I was down to 82 pounds. I was severely malnourished. My liver wasn't working. I was really fortunate. You talk about divine intervention, but I had a doctor's appointment, and I was able to see the new doctor in the practice. It wasn't planned that way. They just shifted me to her, which was a godsend because I was able to share with her what my symptoms have been for the last 6 years and what I've been experiencing. And she sat there and she truly listened to everything I had to say. I mean, just was taking notes. She wasn't rushing me out. And she said, it is not irritable bowel, Eileen. I can almost guarantee that's not what you have. And so I was like, oh, this sense of relief that somebody, after all of these years, really was listening to what I had to say. And
Yeah.
Through that interaction with her, she sent me on the path of understanding and directed me to the right doctors that I needed to go to. And by the time, so I was diagnosed with celiac, and that was almost 30 years ago when we didn't even know what celiac was. And even when I went to the gastroenterologist, I had to get one of those endoscopies, and they biopsied my small intestines. And Jeff, you're probably familiar with this with all of the research you've done, but our small intestines has hair-like particles called villi. So I look at your hand, right? And you absorb all the food within the villi, and that's how it gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And I had no villi left. It was totally flat. And the gastroenterologist, I remember sitting next to my poor husband, and the gastroenterologist said, after we were getting the results, he said, "I've never seen something that bad, and I don't know if it's going to grow back." And I said, okay. And so my husband's trying to, not medical at all, not in the medical field, right? So you could see his wheels start to turn. And he said, what does that mean?
Right.
And I said, yeah. I mean, he was just, and I said, well, I have three small kids. I'm not planning on exiting this world anytime soon. We will, follow whatever I need to do. And I remember meeting his um, nutritionist at the time. We had to go back for a different appointment, and my husband was a computer geek at the time, and he was finding some research and trying to find some things, and he printed out about 100 pages of information. And when we went to the nutritionist, and there's no pun on a nutritionist, it was just what at the time they were not aware, right? And so we sat down, and she gave me two pieces of paper, and she said, this is what you have to follow. And she said, and probably in 5 years, when you stay on a gluten-free diet, you'll be able to go back and start eating gluten, and you can introduce it to your diet. And so I said, well, my husband has this little encyclopedia. I said, we went through it. And she said, oh, can I copy that?
Oh, wow.
And she took it and copied it all. And so, at that point, people were not aware of autoimmune, or especially celiac. And so that kind of started me on, for me personally, why did I develop an autoimmune disease? What was it in my world, either that unconsciously or consciously I was doing? And I'm not saying I blame myself for that, and I don't mean it that way, but I think that there is an emotional connection to well-being.
Yes.
And I think at that point it was a physical, but I also think it was an emotional aspect, that I wasn't processing some emotions that get processed in the body. And I had a lot of guilt because I lived far away from my family. I was the only daughter. I was the one that left and didn't go back, and so there was a lot of emotions around that. They had their grandchildren. We lived so far away, and so I thought I was dealing with it just perfectly fine. But once I really started taking a deep dive and understanding the mind, body, spirit, and like I said, this was 25 plus years ago. That's was way before we talked about mind, body, spirit, really, unless you were in a different part of the world. But so that's
Yeah.
how I really delved into understanding not only the physiology of the body, but how the emotions play a role, and how we not acknowledging or understanding our own emotions and trying to maybe swallow them or push them away,
Mhm.
that it really can cause you, if you have an illness, to be worse, or can, possibly be the cause of an illness.
100%. And I hear this term a lot now. We didn't, like you said, we didn't hear this 10, 15 years ago, but the gut brain connection is
Mhm.
something that we're finally catching on to, that it is, right?
Yay!
It's about time, right? It's about
It's
stinking
about
time.
time.
So how has this not been a thing for the last 100 years?
Mhm,
So that has been a huge revelation, I think, for so many people, especially with
mhm.
things like celiac and irritable bowel and all these different autoimmune things that have been thought to have been caused by other causes, but really I mean, we're learning so much. it's it's
Mhm.
so cool. And by the way, I just want to throw this out to the audience right now for everybody that's watching. If you have questions about anything that we talk about today, especially, the celiac thing, or the emotional connection to all of this, and overwhelm and burnout and all the things, if you hear anything that you're like, hey, I'm going to ask Eileen about this, please reach out. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, it's super easy to use the chat to do that. You don't have to, dive into specifics or anything. You can just say, hey, let's have a chat, and she can reach out to you. But that is, during the show, that's the best way to do it. In fact, I'm going to put her QR code up here, and that is the best way to be able to contact her. In fact, Eileen, could you just, when they scan that QR code, what are they going to find, and how do they get to you?
Sure. So that's my website. So on
Okay.
my website, it has all my information on there. It has my email, and it has a form if you want to fill out. If you have any questions, they can reach out, and so I get those emails daily. So yes, and then it tells just a little about my background and everything else. But it really you'll be able to reach out to me through that website. And so yeah, please feel free. I always love to have conversations with people. I'll hop on 15, 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes it's longer, but usually it's about 20, 30 minutes just to see, what their question is and how I can either
Yeah.
direct them to the right place, or if I'm, the right person for them, then that's great too. But I'm always curious to meet people and really understand their story.
Perfect. And that's half the battle, man, because sometimes you hear somebody talk about their health, but then there's the physical part and there's the emotional part, and that's
Mhm.
where the story comes in, right? And that's the part that not a lot of people realize is connected, but it's almost more important than the physical part. Because if you can,
Mhm.
right? Because if you can address
Yes.
mental emotional part, sometimes it can help to take care of the rest of it. So
Absolutely, and I'm truly a believer in that, and I think we're getting there. We're getting a little bit more. I think allopathic medicine is also taking an awareness about that, um, and so with mindfulness being so prominent these days, and meditation, and even the yoga, people are understanding that there is a connection between the mind and the body. And you
yeah,
mentioned the brain gut connection. I don't think people realize we actually have it's like neurons, brain cells around our gut that
yeah,
connect with our brain, and that communication is there. And if
yeah,
we have an illness, that sometimes that connection gets disconnected, or we don't have that. And so it's really important to know that our body works as a whole. There's a wholeness about it. And when
yeah.
we can look at our illness, or as the person as a whole, a couple of years back, unfortunately, my cousin passed away, but she had stomach cancer, and
Mm,
she
yeah.
within 13 months. But it was really interesting because I went to Mexico with her for alternative treatment, and just a different perspective, right? She was an
Yeah.
oncology nurse for 25 years at a major hospital in New York, and they addressed the physical, but they didn't address the mental and the emotional part of it.
Yeah.
And she she didn't either until we opened that door. She always knew that I, was a little more over on this side of, looking at, let's look
Yeah.
at body as a whole. But even just when we look at ourselves, we're not our illness, right? We're a whole
Right.
person. And I think that's
Yes.
really hard for people to see, for us to see, especially, when we're going through it. But when we look at ourselves as a whole, I think it's really important. That's how you can, treat whatever it's going on, but it also helps you have a frame of mind that you're not just your disease. You are so much more than that.
And that is where, forgive me, medical community, but first, let me just say, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for good neurosurgeons and good doctors and good nurses and good medical personnel.
Mhm.
But I also would not be sitting here before you able to do what I'm doing right now if it weren't for some of that alternative stuff, right? That people
Mhm.
are like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't know if it works. It works. It works really well sometimes. There's no guarantees in that, just like there's no guarantees in medical, but
Mhm.
they should be working together. Am I crazy to say that?
Mhm.
They should be working together.
Uh, Together. Can we say that louder?
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah. The medical world and the alternative world should be working together more. They are a little bit. They're getting there. They're coming around. They're finally realizing some of this, some of them, but it's so hard. It's
Mhm.
such a tough system to break into. So well
It
done, by
is.
the way, for doing your part to do that, because it is a tough nut to crack. Uh,
Yeah.
so so speaking of them working together, can you just explain, like, you talked about the negative emotions and stuff, like and
Mhm.
anxiety, like how does all of that, so if you're experiencing negative emotions and anxiety and overwhelm and things like that, how does that actually manifest itself into something like celiac? Like,
So yeah, so I think what happened with me was I had a challenging delivery when I delivered my first son, and my body was
mm,
compromised. I wound up, and so I think what happens, because my body was so immune compromised,
mm,
that then something with the emotional part can just consistently stay in that. So sometimes I think it's the physical that caused the initial issue, and then the emotional part of it just keeps you there, and it almost can prevent you from healing, or if you don't look at both sides of it. Sometimes it's the emotional part, like trauma.
mm,
We,
mhm,
we're I'm so happy that we're looking at trauma so differently these days, for mental well-being and mental health. Um, and so when we look at like something that happens to us emotionally, mentally, then that actually then can cause an area of weakness in part of the body that's related to. So it just depends. They might come first, might come second, but in reality, we need to look at both. And what happens when we get stressed and overwhelmed, we use the part of our brain where the fear networks are there, right? So it's called the
mhm.
amygdala, the emotional centers. Um, I don't know if anybody's watched Inside Out 2, but if anybody that has a little bit of anxiety, they could watch Inside Out 2. I just went with my family a couple of weeks ago.
I've only seen the
But
first one. I haven't. Don't spoil it. I haven't seen the second one yet.
I'm not going to say a word. But I do think that what happens is, well, I know scientifically it happens, is that when we activate that part of that fear network, our body goes in overdrive with stress hormones, and it
Mhm,
releases all the cortisol, the adrenaline. I mean, there's so many, those are only two. There's a ton of them. And when it does that as a temporary fix for something. But if our body feels like it's under attack, and it's not keeping us safe, I always say, the goal of the brain is not to keep us smart, is to keep us safe. And so if our brain is not in safety and we're in fear, which it could be unconscious or conscious, our body is drowning our cells with these stress hormones. And with the stress hormones, they were temporary fix, but we have them flooding our system. And then that causes some sense of imbalance in the cells, and it affects our immune system. It really affects our immune system, our electrolytes,
yeah.
anything at the cellular level, your blood pressure, what it is. But the emotional aspect of that keeps us in that state sometimes. And so we
Mhm.
have to learn techniques and tools to be able to self regulate and
Yes.
be able to understand how our body's working. Our body's not working against us. Our body's working for us. And if we can, as there's couple of terms, befriend, our own brain and our body, you'll hear that a lot. There's several people that train in befriending the nervous system. So you really make friends with it. So you start to work together and you're not fighting against something, because the more we fight against something, the more our bodies get flooded with more of the stress hormones. And I
Yeah.
think it's something that needs to be learned, and it's not really explored by people. And I think that's really important to start to get curious. I always say, let's get in a curious state. Let's ask ourselves some of these questions. What if it wasn't like this? Or what could it be like if it would be different? I tell people sometimes, you have a magic wand, and if anything's possible, what could that be? It gives people a openness to really discover other possibilities of how they could live their life with whatever disease they have.
See, and most people don't dare go there, because when they get a condition or they get some sort of autoimmune thing, or everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, this is my life now. And they don't think that there's ever a way out. And that's so not true. There are so many things you can do. It's not the end. I want everybody to hear that. If just because you have something going on with it, like autoimmune or something that the doctor told you would have forever, not necessarily. It is not
Right.
the end. Do not give up hope. You can do more about that. So
Absolutely. And yes, it is so important to, I think what happens is what our brain does, like I said, it keeps us safe. So when we hear something like that, and we have a negativity bias, right? That's what our brain has, a negativity bias to keep us safe in many
yes.
ways. And so one of the neuropsychologists, I can't think of who it is at the moment, but he says negative things stick to our brain like Velcro, and it's really hard to get off.
Yeah.
Whereas good things, positive things slip off like Teflon. So we really need to focus on it might not be the disease that's, that is, if you feel like it's going well, but there are other things in your life that you can be grateful for, that you can start having just a little positivity. And when you open that part of your brain and start to think that way, then you're able to go through, and you and I both know, when you get a diagnosis of some sort, there's a grieving process, right? There's an unknown.
Sure.
It's fearful. The people around you are fearful. Everyone thought I had anorexia, because at that point, anorexia was just coming on in the scenes, and Oprah Winfrey was talking about it, and everybody was talking about it, being 82 pounds and looking severely malnourished, people would call my husband and say, does she eat? Or does she purge? Or what is she, what does she do?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't think so,
Oh my goodness.
But they don't know. So, right.
Right.
So you have the people around you that are worried too. So that helps you feed into that. So if you really want to support someone that is in your world that is diagnosed with something, I'm not saying, just be positive. You have to meet people where they are and really truly listen to them. And, but you can see them through a lens of wholeness. You don't have to tell them that they're seeing, but you can see them, and that energy, because people exchange energy with one another. They feel that, and you don't need to verbalize it in that sense. But I think I think we need to support people in a healthier way. I don't think we need to fix it for them. I think we need to allow them to go through whatever process and be there to support them and hold the space. And also open up a space that if they're willing, we can share some other aspects of it.
Totally. I love that. And if they're willing, right? Not everybody's ready for everything. Not everything is for everybody all the time. You got to be ready for it.
Exactly.
So, and speaking of that, we are going to, in the second segment, we got to go to a break right now, but stick around, please stay here, because on the second segment here, we're going to be talking about the BodyCue-IQ, and that is, I'm telling you, I know you've never heard of that probably, but trust me, you're going to want to stick around, because it's amazing. And we're going to talk about how that's changing lives. So stick around. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Hey there. You know, every time someone comes into your business or website and uses their card to pay, a percentage of that gets folded back into the system. But it can go to Hydro with Hope instead. If you'd like your business to support us rather than feed back into the system, scan the QR code and we'll show you how to do that while saving your business money.
Does your to-do list have you feeling stressed? Does your list include tasks like responding to email and phone calls, collecting forms and paperwork, and sending quotes and invoices? Have you been neglecting posting updates to your social media accounts, email newsletters, or content on your website? Maybe you need help to get digitally organized. I'm Selena, one of the owners at Office Mercenary, and we're a US-based virtual assistant agency. We can take care of all of these tasks and more so you can get back to focusing on the things you love about your business. Our team is happy to work with you and your individual needs. So schedule a call with us, bring your to-do list, and stop doing the tedious tasks.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Minna.
We're the hosts of Chronically Healthy Life.
Join us Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time on Vitality TV to see how we flip the idea of chronic on its head and create chronic health in our bodies, minds, finances, and relationships right here on E360 TV.
Hey, everybody, before we bring Eileen back, I got to tell you about one thing that we're so excited about. Invisible Condition University. We are launching this in August. August 20th is going to be our launch date. And I tell you what, Invisible Condition is something I wish I had. I wish it would have been around 10 years ago. Every time I had surgery, my wife and family were mostly on their own without anybody to help them. I mean, the medical staff was there, but really they were focused on me because I was the patient. So that's why my wife, Catherine, and I created ICU, Invisible Condition University. We wanted to provide a place where other people like us that have gone through things like us could find community that listens, cares, walks with you, no matter what you're going through. We meet on Zoom twice a month for an hour and provide a safe place for patients and their caregivers to ask questions, vent frustrations, find information not provided by their medical professionals, all the things. If you are interested in learning more and would like to receive a free 30-day membership to Invisible Condition University, simply go to myfreegiftfromjeff.com and check it out, and we will see you there. So I'm very excited about it. Looking forward to seeing you there. So let's bring which button? There it is. I hit the wrong button. Welcome to live TV, everybody. I'm hitting the wrong button here. Okay, welcome back, Eileen. We're back. Cool. I can't wait to dive into this because BodyCue-IQ Holistic Approach is something that I had obviously never heard of. And I'm guessing there's not a huge number of people that know what the heck I'm talking about when I say that. So let's dive into this. Let's dive into this here. I'm going to put your QR code back up here so that when people hear about it, they go, whoa, that's cool. They can get in touch with you. So go ahead.
Awesome.
What is that?
So before I get started, I want to say I love the ICU university. I think that's so cool. Being a nurse, I worked in critical care pediatrics for a long time, so I do love that.
Like that.
And there is so much support needed in that. Mm-hmm. I remember those parents being in the waiting room and just really trying to console each other, and that was really challenging. And you and I both know when somebody has in the hospital for a short time or a long time, whatever it is, their external people don't know how to support them and they don't know how to talk to them. So, and they don't want to burden anybody more of their family members. So you having that space where they can just either be listening, or you can really help them and they can really verbalize what their concerns are and worries. That's amazing.
When I think about it, thank you. We're so excited about it. We when we started thinking about it, one of the things that popped into my head was my parents, because when I was born at 2 weeks old, they go into that checkup, let's do the well check and be on our way. No. we're going to do brain surgery instead after the 2-week checkup. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to see their response to that. I can't imagine hearing that as a parent. So to be able to have the support that they would have through ICU would be huge. So I'm just glad that we're able to do it. So, welcome to live TV, everybody. Technical difficulties. How we doing? I can't hear you, but that's all right. Well, we ran into this a little bit at the beginning of the show too. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'll tell you what. Let's go to let's do one more commercial, and then we'll see if she can get that straightened out, and then we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. As soon as we get that technical difficulty taken care of, Eileen's going to talk about BodyCue-IQ. So don't go anywhere, everybody.
Tired of losing cell service in dead zones? Concerned about connectivity in emergencies? There is now an answer. Introducing the Love Pod. The world's first affordable encrypted global internet Wi-Fi hotspot connects with multiple service carrier networks and is satellite assisted when no service carrier networks are available. So it works virtually anytime, anywhere. Connect up to 9 devices, like our cell phone, laptop, desktop, TV, security cam, and more. Stream, chat, text, download, and make phone calls, all with no roaming fees. With mesh capability, the Love Pods will grow in strength and speed with each new pod activated to create a private terrestrial-based intranet called Love Global Network. The Love Pods are dual blockchain encrypted with Love's proprietary 2048-bit cube chain encryption, giving you the ultimate protection in data privacy and security against digital attacks and hacks to your devices. You are no longer tracked, and your data is never sold. Get the Love Pod, your private, encrypted, portable global internet Wi-Fi hotspot, and stay safe and stay connected.
Okay, there we go. I think we're back. Are we back?
We're
Arlene,
back.
are you there?
We're back.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
You know what? All I
So-
have to say is welcome to live TV, everybody, because you never know what you're going to get. I've had all kinds of fun things happen, and this is just one more for the books. So, all right, let's dive in. BodyCue-IQ. Hit me.
Yes.
What you got?
So, oh goodness gracious, like I said, I've been doing health and wellness for many, many years. I started as a nurse and did that. And after my journey, I got into really understanding well-being and wellness. For about 14 years, I worked with executives on stress management. We'd go into their offices and I work with them using biofeedback devices, which you're familiar with, to understand, to see where the stress was in their body, and then it made it the invisible visible to them. And so over the years, I really was listening to people, and no one was really looking at well-being. They looked at well-being as a whole, but not truly a whole. They would say, physical well-being, and what do we need to do to that? We'd do physical therapy or do whatever, or mental well-being, we would do that. So I've worked with men and women for many years. I'm focusing more on women now, but looking at them as a whole. So BodyCue-IQ is really looking at the body as a whole. And what are the cues the body is telling us? Because our body is very smart. And I said a little bit earlier, our body's trying to keep us safe. And when we start to look at the body as in wholeness, then we can start to really make shifts in our well-being. And so I look at it with it's mental, it's physical, it's spiritual, biological, it's all of those. And so I break it down to an approach, which I call it conscious awareness, because we're really waking up. I think, with so many people really getting curious and understanding that they are responsible for their health and their well-being. They can't leave it to someone else to do that. They need to, which is scary, which is really scary to think, they're like, right. And so they look in the mirror. So when we talk about the BodyCue-IQ, it truly breaks down to looking at our body as a whole. And then I do a lot with breath work, because the breath, as we I would say, what is the first thing that happens when we're born? We take that breath of air, right? And we inhale, and our breath. And I'm so happy because I've been doing breath work for many years, but not yoga breathing. It's not like that. I want people to get back to their natural breathing, which we have shifted our breathing for so many years because we've used breathing as a coping skill to manage. So we do the short, shallow breathing. We're not expanding our diaphragm. And it really plays a role on all of our organs and our endocrine. So if we're not using our diaphragm to breathe, we're not massaging our gut, and we're not massaging that liver part. Our diaphragm plays a role on with the pelvic floor, with our shoulders. So if we're not utilizing that breath and really understanding the importance of taking that natural breath, that full breath, and it's slow and slow. It's when you inhale slow, and you exhale, very slowly out. When you want to reset yourself, but our natural breathing on and of itself has shifted for people. We don't breathe, and so I don't know. I know you've experienced some breath work too with that. So I look at the breath, and then we look at the body and with the brain. I look at the brain to see, really what is your mindset? Where are we looking? I love neuroscience. I'm a neuroscience nerd. I've done brain mapping, and I've worked with a lot of neuropsychologists, and so over the years, it's really important to let's look at our brain and our mindset, and let's kind of see what that is. What have we learned? I believe that behavior is learned, our breathing behavior is learned, but also we learn behavior and we repeat those patterns. So are we looking at regulating our nervous system well enough? Are we looking at the stresses in our life? One of the things that I think you're really familiar with is that people use stress as this word, this just bad word that nobody wants. But it's not the stress, it's the stressors, it's the triggers, right? The stress isn't the issue. It's how we respond to the stress. We have to learn tools in order to navigate that. And a lot of those behaviors are learned unconsciously. So we bring it to the awareness of people of how they start to really understand their breathing and their way they're thinking and what their nervous system is doing. So we get into really getting into understanding the brain and how the brain and the body works together. And they also I always say, I call it beingness, or the being. What is your being? How are you showing up? Is it belief systems that you've collected over the years that are no longer useful, or are they somebody else's belief systems? Where are we going, and understanding what our passion is and our belief systems, and develop a curiosity. I think what happens is we don't allow ourselves to really dig deep spiritually of who we are and where we're coming from and where our strengths are and where our values are. And once we start to become familiar with that, that's when you look at the person as a whole. You really get to see yourself in the mirror, and it's a hard look sometimes. I always say, personal development and, really achieving well-being is not for the faint of heart.
Correct.
You really have to be able to put yourself forward and realize there's going to be some things you really need to change and some behaviors that you need to change. And how can you look at that in a holistic way? And, we're in environments that really influence us, right? We have so many, outside factors. We have the news, we have so many different things. We have, we're going to be, the Olympics was a big thing. So many people were triggered with that, right? And if you watch Facebook, oh my goodness. I mean, it is all
it doesn't
over.
Stop.
And you think about, though, your nervous system getting triggered and that part of your brain is getting fired up to be defensive. How can you have an open conversation with someone when you're in that defensive mode? You can't. You can't put yourselves in somebody else's shoes. I literally say, I want you to visualize, standing up and getting into someone else's shoes, because if you want to open that connection. So it's really taking a deep dive on your overall well-being, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the biological. And that's what the BodyCue-IQ does. And that's the kind of, it's the body, it's the cues, and it's the intelligence of ourselves as a whole human being.
100%. Yeah, that's so true, because that's where people are missing it. That's we talked about this before in the first segment. The dividing it up into, oh, there's the foot guy, and there's the ear, nose, throat guy, and there's the brain guy, and there's all these other professions in traditional Western medicine, and it's so segmented and so broken up, and nobody talks about the whole body anymore. It's all divided up into pieces, and they treat every piece individually. And so I'm so glad that there are people like you and so many other people that have been guests on this show that are kind of flipping the script on that and saying, no, we need to get back to addressing the whole body at once. So,
Yes.
And one of those things that I think you, or maybe it's just part of the protocol that you're talking about here with the, good Lord, the BodyCue-IQ. I totally drew a blank there for a second.
That's okay.
We're gonna go. In fact, we're gonna go do one more ad real quick. But as soon as we come back, because we got to run one more. But then, as soon as we come back, I want to ask you, what are some practical tips? I'm going to ask you now, so we can hit the ground running when we get back. What are some practical tips or strategies that you would recommend for professionals? You usually work with women, right? You're professional women who are struggling with that burnout and anxiety, right? So what are some of those practical things that you would recommend for that group? So don't go anywhere, everybody. You're going to want to hear those tips, and I will see you in just a couple of minutes, just probably a minute. We'll see you soon.
In a world where office workers typically receive 130 daily emails and have an 8-second attention span, CoreCentrica, with her 4 decades of international marketing experience, has partnered with the Learning Code Institute and their 30 years of neuroscientific research. Together, we are crafting unique messaging strategies that resonate, connect, and ultimately convert our target audiences. CoreCentrica, where award-winning creativity and disruptive neuroscience come together. Scan this code now, or call and click, and let us show you how CoreCentrica's partnership with the Learning Code Institute is influencing how businesses connect with their audience, foster engagement, and achieve conversions.
Hi, Eva Baca-Kearns here, and I am the host of One Punch Superstars, where we meet real people who chose to fight for their hopes and their dreams and become the champions of their destiny. You can find us on Achieve TV every Tuesday and Wednesday at noon Mountain Standard Time, right here on E360 TV.
All right, here we are. We are back, and we're going to talk about some practical tips. I love stuff like that because that's what people want to come. That most of the people want to come away with something they can use, right?
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
you can talk about theory all you want, but give me some stuff to do.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And I think what happens is in that sense of overwhelm, I've had people on the whole spectrum where they're just feeling a little bit overwhelmed. It's not their everyday. And then I have people that are just feeling that heaviness, that they don't have a bandwidth to enjoy life or do anything in that sense. And so, but I always start with the breath first because it's with you all the time. You don't have to be anywhere, any special place. You don't have to be quiet. You can do it when you're sitting. I've had people at board meetings, reset. And but the goal is just for people to get familiar with their breathing. I don't always recommend them going right into a breathing technique until they start to know how they breathe. So it's really observation. The first thing I always tell people is observe in different situations. Observe when you're in the car, observe when after a difficult conversation, when you're on the phone. Notice, are you holding your breath? There's a thing actually called email apnea. And people hold their breath when they're writing emails. So I always tell people, so if you're holding your breath and you're writing emails, if that activates the stress response, guess what kind of emails you're going to be writing? They might not be so friendly. So, even just sitting down and noticing before you write an email, are you breathing in your chest? And if then one of the things is important is your posture. with breathing. Most of the people are hovered over their computer. So really one of the things I have people do is, it sounds simple, but just squeeze their shoulders up and release. Squeeze them up and release. Shake out their hands. They can get up, walk around, because then that opens the chest to allow that breath to happen. I would prefer people breathe through their nose because we take in less air. So even just you right now, and I know you do breath work, but just sitting there and take a nice inhale in and then exhale through your nose. When we inhale again. And so taking those low and slow breaths, when I say low, I want you to inhale and I want the breath to get as low as possible into your lungs. Because if you take your two hands and put your hands on the side, that's where your lungs expand. They're not just here. And so we need the lungs, I call it the 360 view. I want you to visualize literally expanding that whole 360 view. So that's something that I tell people that really does help. If you are tense, tense your shoulders and take the low and slow. People do counting, people do some other things, but if you know that sometimes you can't think of that at the moment, but you can think of the low and slow. I mean, that's pretty, that's kind of a rhythm, low and slow, just in that. And I have people, I recommend they do that as a practice when they get up to go use the restroom or when they come back, or attach it to another habit. Because we know that if you attach it to another habit, you can start practicing. And the more you start to develop that awareness, the easier it is then to change, because your body is getting that muscle memory. And so that's very important. But like I said, our breathing is what really impacts, and it can have the biggest impact, positive or negative. So I want people to really understand where their posture is, where their shoulders, where's the tension, release that muscle tension in your jaw, shake out your hands. The other thing is really people can do is just even put their hand on their head and hand on their heart or their stomach and just take some of those breaths, because you're connecting the brain and the heart. And that gives the signal to the body and the brain that you're not in fear mode. It's more of relaxation. So if you really can do that and connect with that and take it low and slow, then that really does connect to that body. Pausing, people don't pause enough during the day. I mean, they don't really pause to be present. So how can you practice being more present? It's truly when you're sitting, it doesn't have to take long. Set your phone for 30 seconds and just totally be present. Feel your feet on the floor, feel your butt in the chair, feel your, be in that, get back in your body, movement. Walking is so important. And I know it sounds, but if you're in the midst of, you're trying something and you're figuring something out and you're really trying hard of trying to figure out, most likely your brain isn't going to figure it out. So get up and go for a walk outside. Walk inside. This, most people do. Where do you get your ahas? It's not when you're sitting at the desk most of the time. It's when you're in the shower or you're walking. You give your brain a question and let the brain figure it out. We don't need to push it. We need to allow the body to work together. And so if you give a brain, the question, let it work. And I think one of the key ones too, besides the breathing, I think is always important, is most people are in they're in the disease of busyness. They're constantly going. Their brain is constantly going, and they don't know how to turn it down or dial it down. But I want you to know that you always have somebody has a memory of something that's calming for them. So whether it's the beach or whether it's the mountains or whether it's something, they really need to know what that happy place is, where they find joy and their heart opens and their body relaxes. We all have a place like that. So if that's it, really remember that. Remember being in that state. The more you recall that state, the easier it is for our bodies to get into that state. We're not machines. We're not meant to go 24/7. So it's the little tweaks to be able to do that. And of course, sleep is ultimately important. That is one of the things, our brain cleanses itself at night. So if we're not allowing it to sleep and really rest and restore, we're not going to be our best selves the next day, be able to focus. It sounds, same thing is Are you hydrating? Simple things, but how are you hydrating? Are you eating? When we get that stress response in our brain, sometimes we have to ask it what it needs. What do I need in this moment? Do I need a drink of water? Do I need a walk? Ask what check in with yourself. You do it, women do it really well with everybody else. What do you need? Can I get you this? Can I get you that? They're taking care of people and they forget to take care of themselves. So ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
What do I need in this moment? Maybe I just need to close the door and say, I need a timeout of 5 minutes, and to reset and whatever that looks like. Yeah. So some of those are the smaller things that I think that people can do without thinking too much about it.
Right. That's true. And it should be something that comes to you quickly and you don't have to think and dig too much because you won't do it otherwise. So, a couple things that popped into my head when you were saying that was one thing that I've heard, with different modalities of, helping things come to your mind and, thinking clearly is tell yourself, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. It'll come to me.
Yes.
Instead of saying, oh, I'm so stupid, I forget stuff all the time. No.
Yes.
It'll come to me. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, this is way back in high school from my choir days. I've been a singer my whole life. I love singing. And one of the things that she would tell us all the time is fill up your lungs like you fill up a glass of water from the bottom up. So if you think about it like a clear plastic bag and you're filling it up with water, it's not starting here and going like this. It's starting way down here at the bottom.
And filling it up. That's a great one. Yes, that's definitely a great one. It's a great visual. And I think that's what people need. I think people need visuals. I use a visual that's an umbrella that shows how the lungs inflate and come back. So that gets really people to understand how they want their lungs to inflate when they breathe. I don't think people are aware of we know the importance of breath because it regulates our nervous system a little. But when we inhale, of course, everybody knows we inhale oxygen. And then when we exhale carbon dioxide. What happens when we challenge our breathing and we don't do healthy breathing or we remove ourselves from the natural breath? I always say your natural breathing isn't your normal. We lose our natural flow and we get a normalcy that isn't unhealthy. But it's that carbon dioxide, that's the most important chemical that we look at or for our breathing, because if we get rid of too much when we breathe too fast and too rapid, then our brain goes into that constricted mode and we're already in there. And so we need enough carbon dioxide in our bodies in order to regulate the way we think and to get the focus we need. So that's why I really focus on breath being the first thing, because we really need to get back to our natural breathing state and understanding what that is. And then you can start to play with other breathing, techniques to calm down and do all that, but really getting familiar with your basic the power of the natural breath.
Yeah, it's true. That's the first thing, because it's the only thing that's voluntary and involuntary at the same time, right?
Yes.
You can't speed up your heartbeat. You can't make your brain do something different, but you can breathe on purpose or let your body take over. So train your body to do it right and you'll be set. So, well, I tell you what, time flies when you're having fun, right? And we have about a minute left or maybe a minute and a half. What would you like to leave our audience with in that time as we're heading out here?
That they are whole. They might not feel it at the moment, but they are whole and they know what they need. They really do. If they start to listen to the body and start to befriend the body and really understand, your body gives you the information it needs. And start to trust yourself. Sometimes when we're not feeling well or we have illnesses, we start to doubt ourselves and we lose that confidence in ourselves. And I want people to realize no matter what disease or what entity, whatever they have, they are still a whole person.
Yep.
And they have a lot to offer the world. They
do. Yeah. Yeah. The condition or the problem or the autoimmune thing is not who they are. It's what they have temporarily, right?
Yes.
So
it's just one of those names, I always say it's just one line. I think what helps is if you can really look at person as a whole, and really
Yes.
see where can I add value to other people's lives,
Yes.
and start to give to other people even when you're in a state that helps regulate that. It's the giving and the nurturing of other people that helps us heal even. So
100%. Yes. I
mhm.
love that. That's good stuff right there. Should write that down, everybody. Write that down. Rewind the recording and write that down. Stick it on your mirror and look at it every day. That's good
Mhm.
stuff. Oh my gosh. Well, Eileen, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome. And I'm so glad that we were able to get the information out that we did. And I hope that it was of value to you, because that's why I brought her on, because I thought you guys would love her. She's awesome. So thank you, Eileen, for being here, for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And like I said, your mission really touches my heart. So I'm thrilled that you invited me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Here we go, guys. Man, I can't believe we're out of time again already. So here we go. If you are watching on Facebook, YouTube, E360 TV, wherever you happen to be watching, thank you. If you have been watching for a while, thank you. If this is your first time, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Come back, subscribe, share, like, all the things. If this is your favorite episode, share it, and please join us for our next show on Friday, August 16th. Well, we will have another amazing guest. And until then, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.